because ibuprofen, which is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, inhibits cyclooxygenase enzymes, which inhibits inflammation in the body. We don't want to inhibit inflammation, especially after you weight train, because that's the signal for your body to repair itself. The only true fasted cardios there really would be first thing in the morning when you wake up or after you weight train. You know what the best way to find out what foods you're sensitive to? Test it out. You know, if you're having digestive problems, eliminate different foods from your diet until you figure out what's going on.
First question from Peter. Dave, I'm trying to figure out the perfect supplement stack for heart health based on what you suggest. Currently, I'm taking 3 grams fish oil, 2.6 grams evening primrose oil, 100 mg of CoQ10. Of course, that goes with low-intensity cardio every day and a healthy diet. I also use mac nut oil on my meal and olive oil. Is there something you would add, suggest to optimize heart health?
He's doing pretty good. He's got my whole protocol down pretty pat, this guy. And just to let you guys know, the Dave Palumbo Experience app is my app that you can download from the Android store or the iTunes store. It's $29 a month, and you get me as your coach. It's basically all my writings, all my videos I've ever done in one place. Plus, I answer everyone's questions in an open forum, so you see all the questions and answers. I do a Q&A video exclusively for the app once a week, and we put up a workout of the week up every single week. And now we're giving, for these guys whose questions we picked of the week, we're going to be giving out a free stimuli to those 2 guys because they're the questions of the week. So a lot of cool stuff happening at the Dave Palumbo Experience app. You might want to download it. It's kind of like having me in your back pocket. But heart health is interesting. You know, sometimes the best thing you can do for your heart is to get checked out to make sure you don't have any problems. Rich Kaspari went on the record and talked about his issue he had. You know, he had listened to our show and heard me talking about cardiac CT calcium scores, and he went and got one, and his calcium score was like 4,000. It was like through the roof or something like that. And then he went and got a follow-up scan, and he had blockages, and he had to have some stents put in. It saved his life. So diagnostic testing is the most important. Get your cardiac CT calcium score. You can walk into almost any testing facility. You don't even need a prescription and just pay for it. It's like $60 or something like that. And they'll tell you if you have calcium buildup and what your score is, and then you can kind of go from there. If the score is greater than 0, then you can talk to your cardiologist. If it's 0, then you have nothing to worry about. So that's something that's very important to heart health, obviously. Getting an echocardiogram once a year is really good. That'll tell the function of the heart. So the CT scan will tell you whether the vessels are open and blood flow is good, but the actual echocardiogram looks at your heart. It's like an ultrasound of your heart while it's beating and contracting, and they can measure chamber sizes and stuff like that, and how much output of blood that you're putting out. Is the heart pumping enough blood, and that's called your cardiac output or ejection fraction. And that's a lot. They can tell a lot from that. EKGs, they can tell a little bit, but that's, everyone says, oh, I got an EKG. You don't really learn that much from an EKG unless you have an arrhythmia or something like that. So definitely get your echo, get your, cardiac CT scan or calcium score. Supplements he mentioned are perfect. What's in omega lyse is perfect. Fish oil, evening primrose oil, those are your essential fatty acids, help keep those LDL cholesterol levels down. Good monounsaturated fats like macadamia nut oil, extra virgin olive oil, really good for the heart. CoQ10 really helps with the efficiency of the heart beating. Ubiquinone is a better form of CoQ10. Life Extension makes a brand of it. I use that. I mean, take 100 to 200 milligrams of that a day, and he mentioned that he was on 100, so that's good. There's really not that much more that you really need for heart health. It's blood vessel wall health, and once again, controlling blood pressure. Make sure your blood pressure is down. If you're running high blood pressures, go on a common, simple ACE inhibitor like ramipril or lisinopril. That's kidney protective, and it will keep your blood pressure down, which is also going to cause any problems. If you have high blood pressure, we don't want that extra strain on the heart at all. And these are things that once again, you have to be monitoring on a regular basis. You can't just look at it once a year and in one snapshot and say, okay, I'm good, or I'm not good. No, you gotta. This is something everyone should have a blood pressure cuff in their house. They have these auto inflates you can buy on Amazon.com. You can buy them at CVS, and check your blood pressure a couple times a week just to make sure it's running all right. Check it every night if you want, and there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't cost anything. These are simple things that you can do for heart health, but I think that the diagnostic tests are the most important. And then if you have problems, then we can address how to reverse some of these problems.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, Wayland O'Weller. How much time is needed to increase the anabolic and metabolic rate when prepping with a caloric deficit? The benefits of a long-term versus short-term increase, say week versus a meal of increased calories.
I think he's talking about like a cheat meal, maybe of like having, a cheat meal versus having a whole week of eating more. I think a cheat meal once a week is something that's not just metabolically effective. Obviously, if you eat a cheat meal, you're going to stimulate your metabolism. But it's something for people to look forward to. If I just give you like a little bit more carbs at every meal for like a couple days, yeah, you're going to be better. But let's face it, when you're dieting, it's nice to know, hey, on Saturday night, I can go eat, sushi rolls, or I can go have burger and fries, or I can go have chicken parm, something to like just get out of the doldrum of the regular diet food. To me, that's better, and it works better mentally for people because it's like almost like a release from the diet for one meal or a couple hours out of the day, whatever it is. Whereas if you're just playing with carb amounts, all right, you can eat more white rice here and a little more potato here. People go insane. I got 15 more weeks of this. Yeah, granted, we want to look our best and we'll do anything to sacrifice, but it's nice to be able to, look forward to a meal, with your family or your loved ones, once a week. And it's just, like I said, it was always something that gave me like an escape and something to look forward to. Hey, I'm going to really diet hard this week because I know Saturday I'm going to get to go out with my friends and we're going to eat, a nice cheat meal. So I think that the cheat meal is more effective than just bumping, carbs up, here and there. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't still do the carb increases too. Sometimes a cheat meal is just not enough, and the person's metabolism is really cranking. But by and far, I don't see metabolic slowdown when people get a cheat meal once a week.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us there, handle is official_RX Muscle Support. Good one here from IFBB Tenacity. We always talk about food digestive issues. What tests would you recommend to learn what food create digestive issues?
I mean, there are some sensitivity, tests you can go for. There's some allergy testing things. You know what the best way to find out what foods you're sensitive to? Test it out. If you're having digestive problems, eliminate different foods from your diet until you figure out what's going on. The main foods that bother people's stomach usually start with dairy because it's lactose. Most people can't digest a lot of lactose. So if you're eating cheeses or yogurts or milk products in your diet, or maybe even a whey protein that's not like a whey isolate, maybe it might be a cheaper isolate or it's blend between a concentrate and isolate. Try to eliminate the lactose from your diet first. That usually solves most people's problems. And then the second issue usually some people have is some people are wheat sensitive. Not everyone. I think way too many people think that they can't eat wheat in their diet, and that's just not the case. There's only a couple of people that are truly allergic to wheat. They're gluten insensitive, and they need to eliminate gluten products from their diet. It's not a big percentage of people, but there are people, I do know people that have celiac disease and they can't have wheat. I haven't seen too many other allergies, any sensitivities. Some people can't eat peanut butter because they're allergic to it, or the shellfish because they're allergic to it. But people know that because they have an allergic reaction when they eat it. But as far as sensitivities, it's usually lactose. That's usually the number. If I have to guess, someone says to me, "Oh, I get bloated, I get diarrhea, I get gas." I said, "What are you eating?" And it's usually, from lactose. Now, I've worked with a lot of girls, who are eating a ton of vegetables while they're dieting, like too much broccoli or too much, and they get gassy from that because, broccoli makes you gassy. Everyone knows that. It's the old, broccoli farts type of joke, but it's true. Even I notice it because I eat a lot of vegetables. Sometimes at night I'll do broccoli and I'll do these little pea pods. I like those. And I'll make too much of it, and I'll be like gassy as hell later. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Because I'm a pretty clean eater. It's too much of those vegetables that make you a little gassy. And if you're having trouble, getting gassy, or you're uncomfortable, your stomach bloated because you're not going to the bathroom adequately, obviously incorporating a fiber product like Fiberlize is going to also be a help. But as far as getting back to the original question, sensitivities, I only see lactose. Unless you're one of these people that have a lot of allergies, then you might want to get tested. We had my son tested for a bunch of allergies, and he was allergic to nothing, basically. Everything came back, he was fine. He had no sensitivity to anything. And we just did it because he was having some skin irritations. I still believe it's lactose. I don't know if they really tested that, but obviously I'm lactose intolerant, which more than likely could mean that he could also be. So look at your parents too. If your parents have any certain allergies, that's another clue to take a look at.
Jacob Jameson, I hate the show so much, I'd rather go into another 6-month lockdown than listen to another episode. Good for you, Jacob. Bringing back the I hate this show. I'm a young guy, 24 years old, debating getting on TRT, so I don't have to experience the testosterone dip that occurs post-cycle. I know you hate the term, quote, blasting and cruising, but are there any real negatives that exist with getting on TRT now when my natural levels are more or less fine a couple of weeks after a cycle? I know you have a baby-making protocol, but I would say fertility is the thing I'm most worried about now.
Yeah, I think that people today don't want to suffer at all. They don't want to have any uncomfortableness or any change, and they're very nervous about going off a cycle. I've never seen such anxiety in people. Back when I was competing, it was part of the game. You did a cycle, you grew, you went off the cycle, you cleaned out. You went back on the cycle again for your contest. After the contest, you went off the cycle and you cleaned out. You're not losing anything, all right? Trust me. You might deflate a little bit. You're not going to be as strong. Maybe your sex drive is not going to be as good. It's okay. It's only going to be 6 to 8 weeks, And guess what? The first 4 weeks, you're still going to have all those drugs in your system because they don't leave immediately. The second you stop taking your last injection doesn't mean the next day you have nothing in your system. It takes 3 to 4 weeks for the stuff to come out of your system. So stop being a baby, okay? There's no reason for a 20-something-year-old to be on HRT. And even the guys, I have guys who are in their 50s saying, when I come off cycle, I'm back on my HRT. I'm like, then if you're on HRT, then don't do a cycle, if that's what you're looking for. Okay, but if you're going to do a heavy cycle, you better clean out for 6 to 8 weeks after the drug cycle's over. You do your HCG, you do your Clomid, that takes 4 weeks, so you're really still on something, and then you go 4 weeks on nothing, and then you go back on. It's not a toxicity issue, okay? Because we know HRT is not toxic. It's a receptor sensitivity issue. If you're always staying at a higher level, even on HRT, that's higher than what you're normally going to produce. Your androgen receptors are not going to increase their receptivity to the point that they would if you went off cycle completely. Because when levels dip really low, what happens is the androgens, the cells think that there's not enough androgen present. The cells think there's not enough androgen receptors to accept what's out there. They don't know that you just did a cycle and now you have nothing left in your system because they're so used to a certain level of testosterone in the system. So what happens is the cells start to produce more androgen receptors on the nucleus of the cell. So looking for more, testosterone. And after 4 weeks of doing this, they restore themselves. So that's why you do your 4 weeks of PCT, you do your 4 weeks off, and then you can go back on. So you've cleaned yourself out from a toxicity standpoint and you've restored receptor sensitivity so that when you go back on a cycle, you actually get maximum results. Why would you want to get anything less than that? It doesn't make sense.
Let's go to Zorro5144. How to work out with plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, I suffer from that. And I've suffered from it. One of the solutions a lot of people find that works really well is to get, and I recommend this for all guys that work out anyway, is custom orthotics for your shoes. So the plantar fascia is if here's the bottom of your foot, it kind of runs along here, and a lot of times that band of tissue that goes here can get inflamed. A lot of times it's because the person has a weak arch and they have flat feet, like I do. I have very flat. I think I actually have concave feet. But so if that plantar fasciitis, if that plantar strip of connective tissue is getting weaker or inflamed, it's going to really hurt. It feels like someone's stabbing a knife into the bottom of your foot. But if you get a custom orthotic made where they actually can mold your feet and they make a custom insert that goes in your shoe, and any podiatrist can make this for you, or chiropractor usually makes them too. You wear them in your shoes, it holds your foot. It actually creates an artificial arch for your foot, which does a number of things. Number one, it'll take the pain and the pressure off of that plantar aponeurosis, or band of connective tissue, which over the course of a week or two should alleviate the pain. But it also gives your body perfect biomechanics because now your feet sit perfectly with a good arch, and even if you put 1,000 pounds on your back to squat, those orthotics are holding your foot into the right configuration, which is aligning the rest of your body properly, which is going to give you better leg development. Which I see a lot of guys who have flat feet have very good front quads, and they have nothing in the adductor, inner thigh, or hamstring glute area, because they're always falling forward because they don't have any arch support. As soon as you put the orthotics in there, it kind of corrects the balance of their legs, and that's something that I noticed in my physique. And I have all my guys, and I tell everyone about custom orthotics. I mean, it's like if you wear a belt and you use straps, it's another essential piece of equipment that you should use. Every NFL football player must wear custom orthotics. They're all made.
Let's go to Live for Pump. In regards to fasted cardio, how long do you have to go without eating for it to be considered, quote, fasted?
Who knows? You know, fasted. The only true fasted cardios there really would be first thing in the morning when you wake up, or after you weight train. Because after you weight train, you've exhausted a lot of glycogen, so you've created a depleted state. Whereas overnight, you're creating a depleted state because you're not eating for like whatever it is, 6 to 8 hours that you're asleep. So that's fasted. I mean, other than that, you're not going to get a true fasted state. That doesn't mean that cardio is not going to be effective. I mean, if you have a busy schedule and you can slip, you know, on your lunch break at work, you can slip in an hour of cardio, and you had a lunch or a snack or one of your meals, whatever, an hour and a half before that, doesn't mean you're not going to burn fat. So don't get all neurotic about it. If you have the luxury of choosing when to do your cardio, first thing in the morning and after you train are usually the best times. But otherwise, it doesn't matter. You're going to still burn fat.
Relentless Luca, should you worry about waistline size in the off season?
When we talk about size, the way I interpret that is fatness. Okay, so if you're getting slabs of fat hanging off your obliques, okay, because you're gaining too much body fat, yes, that's a problem. Okay. However, if your waist just gets bigger because you're eating a lot of food and you're bloated all the time, you know, but yet you don't really have a lot of body fat there, then yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Now, there are some people that wear these waist shapers. They work. They're like, you know, torture devices. It they don't feel comfortable. You're always being squeezed here, but they work. If you wear them consistently, you'll get some benefit from it. Because it trains your waist to stay smaller. Having said that, however, you know, like I said, as long as you're not accumulating large amounts of fat in your body, if you genetically have a small waist, it's going to get small when you diet again. That's just the way it works, you know. Even if you get fat, it's going to get smaller. I just don't recommend that people get fat in the off season around their waist. I don't want slabs of fat hanging off your lower back. It's just going to make it really difficult as a man to get that waistline in shape. But that doesn't mean you should be restrictive in your eating, and then you're going to sacrifice building muscle. Okay, that's not acceptable either.
Serious and silliness. Your opinion on trestosterone acetate?
I don't think it's a good steroid. I don't think it's ever been a good steroid. It's a very high aromatizing agent. In other words, it converts to estrogen at a very high rate. It's really not that great of an anabolic. I think a lot of people used it. I think, you know, Tony Hughes made it very popular with his when he was selling it over there, because it was easily available. I don't know if it was legal technically, but it was definitely more available, and people were able to buy it. So they were buying it because it sounded like trestosterone, but it really isn't like trenbolone. It doesn't work like that, and trenbolone doesn't even convert to estrogen, so it's really not like it. So is it better than nothing? Yeah, probably. But is it a good steroid? If you had to choose between that and other ones that are better, no, it's not. Okay. I don't like any steroids that convert at a very high rate to estrogen.
This one's right up your alley. It's from Glenn Hill. How did you determine 4G was a good dosage for glucosamine?
Trial and error, really, to be honest with you. I would go out and buy generic glucosamine pills. Usually, I think I was using Vitamin Shops, and I would just experiment. I'd go 2 grams, because that's usually the dose, right? They recommend 2 grams a day, 2,000 milligrams, and I never felt any relief from it. So I'd go to 3 grams. Because I stopped using it a lot of times. Then I said, I wonder if it's just dose-related thing. Because I started thinking about it like mechanistically. I said, you know, you eat protein, and if you don't get enough protein, you don't build and repair muscle. Connective tissue and joints are pretty, you know, there's a lot of those in your body. I'm like, I'm wondering if we're just not taking enough of this stuff in. I said, you know, you probably need to scoop the stuff into a shake like you do with the, you know, protein powder. But the stuff, glucosamine tastes disgusting. It's the most gross tasting thing you could ever imagine. So I kept upping the dose, and when I hit 4 grams a day, I said, "Whoa, I feel something here." And I did the same thing with MSM, which is methyl sulfonomethane, which is a biologically available source of sulfur, which is what we find a lot in the joint and connective tissues. And we don't really eat a lot of sulfur in our diet. So when I combined those two at a 4-gram dose of each, it was like magic happened. But it took a few weeks to feel the effects of it, but I definitely noticed it. And so I started recommending it to my clients. Hey, try 4 grams and 4 grams. I would send them to the vitamin shop, buy 2 bottles, bottle of MSM, bottle of glucosamine, and that's how it started. And then I said, you know what? When I started making my own product line, I'm going to put everything in the right dose in 1 bottle in a month's supply to make it easy, because I hated using 2 different bottles. And then I found out boron was important for joint, so I wanted to put that in there. So I create, and then of course I found out about UC2 collagen and suppressing the immune system. When it attacks collagen. So there's a lot of technology, I'm not going to go in detail, in Arthrolyze, and that's how Arthrolyze came about. But it was really a trial and error thing. And that's how a lot of the stuff we learn in this industry is through trial and error. I tell this all the time. How do you find out what the best diet that works is? You try every freaking diet, and then you find out the one that's most effective. And then when you combine that with the science of what's going on, you get a formula. And that's how that's when I teach my Secrets of Becoming a Diet Guru course, and I give you the formula of how to design diets. That's where it comes from.
Let's go to Kevin Connor rather. Is it good to take ibuprofen after injections to prevent swelling?
No, it's actually the worst thing you can do, because ibuprofen, which is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, inhibits cyclooxygenase enzymes, which inhibits inflammation in the body. We don't want to inhibit inflammation, especially after you weight train, because that's the signal for your body to repair itself. Okay, so whenever I would tell people, like, if you have a pain, like we used to take in the old days when we would take, like, some of the site injection oils, like the Chris Clark, it worked really well, but it would leave you sore. Never took ibuprofen. Tylenol. Tylenol is a better painkiller because it doesn't inhibit inflammation, and that's the key. If you're sore, take Tylenol. I don't. To be honest with you, my wife loves ibuprofen, for headaches and stuff and all whenever she gets sick. I don't ever use ibuprofen. I just don't think it's a good. It works effectively, it's a good pain med, and it's definitely a good anti-inflammatory, but I don't use it ever. I only use Tylenol if I have a headache or if I have a high temperature, because I think it's better for bodybuilding purposes to use that, because it's not a good idea to inhibit inflammation unless you have excessive amounts of it in your body. And that's, they did a study with old people who are 90 years old that old people taking non-steroidals like ibuprofen actually recover better from workouts because they have too much inflammation in their body. So it kind of tempers that inflammation a little bit. But these were like 90-year-old people. So, but for the average person who's in good shape, who works out hard, taking ibuprofen, especially on a regular basis, is not a good idea. It's also not good for your kidneys.
We'll finish off with a couple of comparison questions. We're getting a lot of these comparison questions. I think one of the New Year's resolutions for 2020, we're going to bring back Versus. So Versus is a show that we started about 2.5 years ago or so. Simple enough, we would have, bodybuilder, David do the comparison. Sometimes you have the fantasy matchups, right? Like, hey, Rami versus somebody from the 90s or what have you, whatever.
Victor Richards versus Big Ramy.
Sorry?
Victor Richards versus Big Ramy.
Yeah. So we're getting a lot of those. So we should definitely bring back that show in the next coming week. Anyway, so let's hit on a couple of them. Who had the better physique, Greg Kovacs or Art Atwood?
Competitively speaking, Art Atwood.
Chris Angeletti. If 2002 version of Marcus Rule competed in 2020 Mr. Olympia, how would he do? Where would he place? Would he beat Big Ramy?
Good question. I think Ramy might be better in the hamstring glutes than Marcus, although Marcus got harder. But Marcus had problems sometimes with the conditioning around in the glute hamstring area too. So I think Ramy would win, but it would be a good battle. Marcus, close second.
This one is gonna conjure up a little controversy. Okay. Benoit 847 was the last one we'll do.
Okay.
Sean Ray versus Flex Lewis, both in their prime. Who wins?
It's a good question. it's hard. It's hard to make that comparison because without seeing them next to each other, and putting them in pictures next to each other really wouldn't do justice either. Sean got pretty hard at some of his shows. He was pretty damn good. It would definitely be a good matchup. Flex, we haven't seen Flex in the open division yet, so I haven't seen the best Flex Lewis yet. I want to see him compete in the open where he doesn't have to make a weight class and suck himself down. Because you can't use the Flex Lewis off-season pictures because that's not fair because, you know, you put him on Instagram, people filter him and shit like that. I want to see Flex Lewis at his best on stage in the open class where he doesn't have to make weight because I think making weight sucked his upper body down too much. So I'd have to say Sean Ray, up until this point, would win. But I think Flex Lewis will be better once he hits the open class and doesn't have that weight restriction on him.